Welcome back to the Wardrobe of Woe, and in today's video I'm going to be sloshing through 3 example Maggotkin of Nurgle lists. The new Maggotkin of Nurgle book is fantastically written with many great options to pick from, and it lets you have a variety of viable lists with many different unit types while still feeling how a Nurgle army should feel. I am always blown away at how amazing the Nurgle book is. And so I've built these lists around a theme, as well as the strength of the list in mind. These lists are meant to be a starting point for you to modify and build as you see fit, including units you enjoy and dropping units you don't. And as always with my previous list videos, I won't be including any battalions in the list, and I'll leave those to you. But without further ado, let's get started. The first list, like my previous Chaos example lists, is a mortal-focused army. When I was researching the Nurgle book for this video, I was realizing that the mortal lore spell is really good, and so I wanted to kind of focus on the magic for this list. For our subfaction, we are taking the Filthbringers, which lets us augment our magic, and take a Rot Coven, which, if you were not aware, is 3 individual sorcerers that, when they are next to each other, they get pluses to cast. To back up our Coven, we have a Lord of Blights, who is a general with the overpowering Stench command trait, as well as the Split Horn Helm. Additionally, we have the Lord of Plagues to help the Lord of Blights augment our Blight Kings. These 2 heroes are going to give various buffs to our main fighting force, the Blight Kings. The Lord of Blights giving the ranged attack to a variety of Blight Kings as they charge in. To do extra chip damage is a great way to further get disease tokens on enemy units and to soften them up as you charge in. The Death's Head is not a bad profile. It's 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1, and the attacks are however many units in the target unit up to a maximum of 7. So you can get out a decent amount of damage here and also rack up some disease points. The Lord of Plagues is a great way to simply get the +1 attack to a Blight King's units. Something else to keep in mind is after the Lord of Blights and the Lord of Plagues attacks, you can pick one Blight King unit that has not attacked and immediately attack with them. So you get 2 activations before your opponent gets to swing back. So there's potentially a good deal of strategy there. Outside of our main force, we have a faster unit in the Plague Drones to buzz around the battlefield and get them wherever we need to go. They aren't mortals per se, but I still think that they fit well enough and they provide a speedier unit to shore up some of our downsides. Lastly, to further emphasize the magical focus of the list, we have 2 endless spells. We have the Umbral Spell Portal and Soul Scream Bridge. The Umbral Spell Portal lets us get off the shorter range spells from the Nurgle spell lore, as well as gives the sorcerers the unique ability to give disease through endless spells. The other endless spell we have is the Soul Scream Bridge. This is here to shore up the slow speed of the army. This gives us a lot of flexibility in where we want to move and how we want to approach the battlefield. This list is going to really try and take advantage of the great spells that Nurgle has to offer, and it is fairly general purpose. It has a lot of flexibility for you to tackle most situations. The units within the list also work fairly well together and they provide great support to each other. Some downsides to this list is that it is fairly hero dependent and there are no monsters or unique heroes. So you're going to have a hard time getting the additional victory points or utilizing special heroes like the Glotkin. As for the power rating, I would give this list an 8.5 out of 10. And if you were to buy each of these models from Games Workshop, it would cost you around $449 US, 343 British pounds, or 409 euros. Next up we have a Demons list. This list is similar in concept to the Mortals in that you have a lot of tools to buff up your battle line, but with a demonic twist. This list, as compared to the Mortal one, has more big hammer units in the Great Unclean ones and more bodies. To start, we're going to take the Befouling Host subfaction, which lets us put down another tree at the start of the battle, generating more summoning points for us. We also have a Sloppity Bilepiper and Spoilpox Scriver to give us various buffs to our Plague Barrier Horde. We also have Epidemius to provide us with a lot of rerolls, when we need them. And finally, for our heroes, we have 2 Great Unclean Ones. The weapon choices for the Great Unclean Ones is mostly a personal preference. I don't think there's a bad option. They all have their uses, and so equip your Great Unclean One how you see fit. To finish off the list, we have a unit of 20 Plague Bearers, and then 2 units of 10 Plague Bearers, and finally 1 Beast of Nurgle to fill points. This unit is very easy to use, and you have a fairly simple game plan of attritioning your opponent just how Nurgle likes it. The 2 Great Unclean Ones are fantastic hammer units, and with the various rerolls from Epidemius, you have a lot of safety nets if you get a bad roll. With the additional tree from the sub-faction, we have good potential for summoning later on in the game when our forces are starting to falter. As for the downsides of this army, it is slow as most armies of Nurgle are, but unlike the Mortalist, there isn't any built-in ways to negate that. I'd also like to mention that to get the maximum value of your various buffs, you might need to keep your units fairly close together, preventing you from spreading out and controlling the board too much. But that can be mitigated if you just don't care about the buffs. Lastly is a list that I personally want to see ran someday, and it is all about the beautiful beasts of Nurgle and Horticulus Slimax. I personally love Horticulus Slimax. I think his lore and his model are amazing. I love the big old sluggy thing that he's riding, and so I just had to build a list around him. And, of course, include the goodest boys around. This list has a similar hero structure to the previous one, but with an emphasis on beasts of Nurgle and Nurglings. The real thing to talk about here is Slimax. He gives you the ability to get 1 free tree for once per game, further boosting the summoning capacity of the army, and the artifact of the Great Unclean One can potentially let you summon another Beast of Nurgle. For the battle line, we unsurprisingly have a lot of Beasts of Nurgle. I reinforced 2 of the squads to better maximize buffs, but if you want 7 individual squads of beasts, that is an option as well. I included the Nurglings in the list to further the idea that this is a fairly mobile list as far as Nurgle is concerned. The beasts can move quicker than average, and the ability to deep strike Nurglings lets you have some flexible board presence. This list is great if you want to play around with the summoning mechanic of Nurgle and have a faster than average army. Also, the Beasts of Nurgle aren't something to sneeze at. They have some pretty alright damage capabilities, but this list does fall short in the bodies department, as well as having less wounds on average than most Nurgle armies. As far as a power rating, I would give this list Who's a Good Boy out of 10. If you were to buy all these models from Games Workshop, it would cost you around $720 US, 550 British pounds, 656 euros. Before we end off the video, I'd like to give a thanks to our Patreon members and an extra special thanks to Nick Hoff. If you'd like to become a Patreon member, consider checking the link in the description below. I'd also like to mention that we have a Discord channel, so if you'd like to join that, there will be a link to that as well. And that is 3 different Nurgle army lists. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, consider leaving a like or a comment. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, please consider subscribing. This has been the Wargrove of Will, and I'll see you guys next time.